universal credit. Universal credit is a very important aspect to our income. Last month we had 333 people on universal credit, and slowly but surely they're coming across, and we've got to help them get across onto universal credit. We can do this with the Charter. We can help our do ourselves. I chair the regeneration group, steering group on Gorse Ride, and last month on Gorse Ride alone we had 7 people go to food banks just to get their food. In the first week in September we had 7, so we had 7 in 1 month, 7 in the first week of in first week of September. So the aspirations, you've got them all. Hopefully you'll agree with them, and hopefully we can adopt them, work through them. There's community fun days in there. We've got over 7,000 people coming along to them. There's myriad of things we're already doing in there, but we want to do better. We want to carry on. We want to push this further on and make it happen. And with your help, we can do that. But I do need your help and the involved tenants. So I'm going to leave it there. I want to say a few thank yous to my involved tenants. I couldn't do what I do without them. I want to say thank you to Simon, to Ross, and to Hannah and Kim, the people that and the members of TLIP that back me 100%. So thank you for that. If you've got any questions, please, if I can't answer them, I'll get the answers, and hopefully we can work together and push this through and make it a better place to live for our tenants and residents as well. Okay, any questions? Simon, if there's any questions?
Steve, I'm sure I speak for all the council to say that we would support this and give you every support in achieving our aspirations. And certainly from me, yes.
Yes. Okay. Councillor Furringer first, and then Andy Croy, please.
Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Mayor. Thank you very much for that very interesting presentation. When I start that, I've got several members of my family who have lived on council estates, okay, and I found them very welcome. Although not in Wokingham, these were actually in Surrey, but they were very nice, pleasant places to live. What really struck me by what you were saying about stigma towards council tenants, I'd find that a little bit alarming, to say the least. But I'm just sort of putting it out to you, what would you do as tenants to change perception of other people on that one? And finally, a little bit here as well, I would certainly welcome any updates. Thank you.
Our way of tackling that is going to go out onto social media. We'll be coming back to Simon. He doesn't know this yet, but we'll be coming back to him for some money to actually get somebody to do social media, so we can actually get some of our tenants involved in social media as well, so we can actually publicise. This is the way to go as far as we can say. WhatsApp, Facebook, the whole thing, and actually portray all the good stories, not the bad ones, because we only hear bad stories about benefits and whatever and this and that. And I would like to do that. That is one of our things. One of our involved tenants and myself will be doing a podcast about the good things that are going on. I hope Jen's around somewhere. She's up in the gallery somewhere, hopefully, and we'll be doing that. And so you guys might be getting an invite to come along and sitting on our podcast and give us your councillors' perspective on your own areas and things like that. So if you see us popping up, you know where it's coming from. That's just a few of the things that we want to do. The Charter explains other things in there. I'm not going to go into great depth about it because you guys have got a long night.
Councillor Croy next.
Thank you, Stephen, and it's nice to see you again.
Thank you, Andy.
And thank you, Simon, as well, for all the work that you do. Like you, Steve, as you know, I'm a graduate of the Gorse Ride community.
Absolutely.
A very proud graduate, in fact, and I was just going to ask, I was going to say lots of nice things about you and the work that TULIP do, and I wanted to ask you, with the disruption that's going on in Gorse Ride at the moment, how successful do you think you will be in keeping together that unique community spirit that I think we all share?
Do you want the proper answer, or do you want the diplomatic answer?
I want the truth, please. Thank you.
We've been promised that anybody that wants to come back will come back. That's fine. That's what we want. But the community is already fragmented. People are moving away that have lived there for a long time, and unfortunately, the people are moving away and they aren't coming back. So the whole community will be a new community when it comes back. That's my perspective. That's my own personal opinion. And we would like a nice community down there. I think it will be achieved eventually, but it won't be what it is now. That's the honest truth from my point of view.
Thank you, Steve, for coming along tonight and presenting this amazing video, and also Ross for helping to put together this piece of work. I'd like to pay a special tribute to Steve for all of his work on TLIP. It's a tremendous amount of work that you put in on a voluntary basis, and to all of your colleagues as well. What we've got tonight is really important, the 10 key priorities, and I really hope that when we come back and see you in 2 years' time, we've delivered on all of these and more. But what I wanted to hear from you tonight is what you see, what your perception is about perhaps what's the most important thing to you and to your tenants. You've gone out and you've spoken to over 7,500 people. Mm-hmm. What do you think is their top priority, and how can we help to achieve that for you and for them? And also, just to say, I'm really pleased that also you're going to be making some podcasts as well, because I think one of the most important things, I think, is tackling the stigma associated with being a council tenant. And I think that talking about positive stories is a really good way to go about changing that view.
Yeah, thank you, Charlotte. It's good to see you again. Yes, what my plan, and the guys don't know this yet, because I make up plans and I go to Hannah and Kim and say, this is what we ought to do. We go off and do it, and then Simon goes, we can't do that. I go, all right then. So, but invariably he doesn't say that very much. What I will go back to the tenants for, and we will take the aspirations, we will look at them, where we think the priorities are. We might do social media to go out there and find out what your priority is on the first aspirations or the second aspirations. Whatever comes first, we will work on that first. And we will spend the time it needs to take to get that aspiration done and figure it out. But a lot of this stuff, we have an action plan that we do, and we'll put that into that. So we have a strategy, the strategy plan that we all developed, and yeah, it will just go on like that. I ought to say that we did some training on social stigma a few weeks ago, and we sent the trainer the first aspiration that you've got on your papers about the stigma of social housing. Within a very short space of time, they came back and said, can we adopt this as best practice? So that gives us a heads up. That's from the Tenant Participation Service, TPAS, and that's a really recognised thing throughout the country. We belong to ARCH, which is the Association of Retained Council Housing. I go to London with Hannah once every 3 months. We're presenting this there. I have been holding off because I want to present this to you guys because it's Wokingham. We work in partnership with you and nobody else, and we want to make the best for ours. But I envisage this thing, once it hits it out there, it's going to go bonkers. But we want Wokingham to take the credit for it. And we want the councillors here and the staff and everybody else that's involved with it to take the credit for that, because we work in partnership together. That's my philosophy, and I'm going to bang on about it till the cows come home. So that is what it is. We work in partnership with you guys, and we want to maintain that, you know. And sometimes we're going to say things that maybe you aren't going to agree, but we can talk about it. We're not dictatorial about it, and we can come to arrangements, and that's what we do. We do it in TLIP. We're a non-political group, and it works at TLIP. Why shouldn't it work here?
Thank you. Lots of interest, lots of answers, but we're going to run out of time, so we might need to limit it. Prue Bray, next, please.
Thank you. I am a member of TLIP. I've been a member of TLIP, I think, since it started, probably. It is one of the most enjoyable things I do on the council. as Steve referred to, it's non-political. It is in fact composed of tenants and members of all the political parties, but for some reason we managed to work all together on it without any party politics getting in the way, except very occasionally when I might happen to mention something about a government green paper or similar. So I think the most important thing is Steve himself, who has led TULIP so well over the last few years and made all the difference, really created an organisation that's going to help tenants, and this kind of fruit of the work that they have done is actually, as Steve has said, making a difference at a national level, not just locally. And I hope everybody's going to really get behind it and help deliver what tenants want, because that's what we want for our tenants.
Thank you, Prue.
Councillor Cowan next, please.
Thank you. I do support this, Stephen. I think it's an excellent suggestion. Looking at the recommendation number 2, it says the charter is formally reviewed in 2 years' time. I'm not sure if the other councillors feel about this, but I would welcome you back informally in about 12 months' time to update us then.
I'm happy to do that if you want that. I know your time is valuable, but if we can achieve enough to bring it back to you by then, yes, I'd like to do that, if that's possible. But I'd like the time to spend on the aspirations to make sure they're done properly, if that's okay with you guys.
Councillor Conway next, and this will be the last question. Oh, we saw your hand up. Okay.
Okay, I can say I grew up in a tower block in a disadvantaged area, so you can achieve things if you want. But I'd like to see, would you like more council housing built rather than having housing associations and other things? Should we have more of that?
Yes, I believe we should. I'm going to step on Simon's toes now, which I tend to do quite a lot. If the council want to do something, then what we should do, you have right to buy receipts. We have headroom. We have old properties that we could sell. It's because they're not in the right areas and they're really expensive to maintain. We could go to a developer and say to them, right, we have this X amount of money. We would like to buy 50 of your houses, but we want them built in the Wokingham way. We want them built to Wokinham's what's the word I'm looking for? Standards, thank you. We want them built like that. So they're like homes for a long, long time. We want them built in a way where they can be homes for life. And what I mean by that is not when somebody moves in, they don't come out, but we can adapt them for later on in life. If somebody's in there, we could put an extra window in there so we can put a wall up. If somebody needs 2 bedrooms, make a big bedroom, make a wall, make 2 bedrooms, so if there's a carer that has to stay. We can make downstairs showers, make a utility room downstairs that we could convert into a shower. These sort of things we need to think about. But if we can do that in council housing, and I apologise if I'm jumping all over your stuff, Simon, because you're the main man for me, and we can work like that. But yes, to answer your question, yes, we should do. And we've got Tape Lane coming up in the next few, and those are going to be the first few council houses in the area for, well, years. I'm looking forward to them being put online and everybody saying, yeah, we've actually built some in the HR8 now. That would be brilliant, absolutely amazing. Sorry, I'm going on a bit.
I now ask a member to propose the recommendations of this. Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Steve, it's John Kaiser.
Hiya, John.
Hi. I'm living proof that not everything that comes out of a council estate's good.
Good man.
It's an honour to serve with you on TULIP, and I would very much think it a great pleasure if I could propose this motion to accept. And I know that Prue would like to second that. Okay, I'd go straight into the motion if you would like. It's to ask the Council to note the aspirations outlined in the Tenants' Charter and continue to work in partnership with them to achieve these. Secondly, to recommend that Wokingham Borough Council progress in terms of addressing this charter is formally reviewed in 2 or maybe 12 months' time, depending on what you decide to do. And I'd like to see a show of hands for that, if I could. Thank you.
Prue, are you going to second the recommendations? Yes. Thank you. So can we now go straight to the vote? Yes, thank you. That's approved then. Thank you. Goodness, massive. Okay, the next item, I'm just about to squeeze that one in. The next item is Treasury Management. We're going to have a report. Would you like to speak, please, on the Treasury Management? We need a proposer. Wait for him to go out.
Should we not say thank you?
Oh, yes, certainly. Yes, Rose, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We now move to someone to propose the Treasury Management report. And
thank you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, this is a standard report that we bring out quarterly, and it's basically to inform the executive and members of the public of the effective and safe management of the council's cash flow and its investments, at the same time being able to make the available resources to deliver service improvements and service continuity through the council's ambitious capital and investment programme. And the report actually summarises the Treasury Management operation during 2018-19. It is presented for the purpose of monitoring and review in accordance with the Council's Treasury Management practice. The Council adhered to all the agreed prudential indicators during 2018 to 2019. And I'm quite happy to take questions on this.
We haven't got a seconder, have we? Well, I need someone to answer for the proposer first.
Who's the proposer?
Okay. Do we have a seconder for that, please? Yes, John Halsall.
Councillor G.
Oh, Councillor G.
Is it appropriate to ask questions now or after it's been seconded?
Sorry, been seconded by John Halsall.
Has been seconded.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Oh.
No. Do you wish to speak on
Yes.
on the? Okay. Sorry. Which one?
I'll reserve my position.
We've got a seconder as well. Thank you. Does anyone presumably wish to speak on it? So back on your feet, which is what I thought was happening. Thank you.
I have a question about the general fund loan portfolio on page 105. So I can see there that there's £65 million worth of loans, and the loans are known, and the cash flow associated with the interest is known. So they're numbers that are definite. I think what concerns me is that the investments which those loans are used to fund are not definite. The income will be subject to market forces, and the capital, the investment, will also be subject to market fluctuations. So I'd like to know what the council's plan is to repay these loans, especially in light of the current economic instability. So what happens if the market value of the investments goes down? How will the loans be repaid?
The loans are actually repaid from income where there are investments such as the town centre. The income from the town centre will pay down the loans. But where we're investing capital in infrastructure, some of the loans are actually borrowed to cover off the shortfall we've got currently at the moment, because as a council we've taken the position that we will deliver infrastructure before we deliver some of the major housing, and what that means is we have to borrow that money to bridge that gap. So that will get paid when the seal receipt is received, or in some cases 106 receipts are received, and that's how those loans will be paid down.
So, Andy Croy, would you like to speak, I believe? Oh, okay. We thought your hand was up there. Does anybody else wish to speak?
Councillor G wants to come back.
You want to come back, Councillor G? No, you can't. You can't? I'm not sure you can come back, apparently. Is there anyone else that needs to speak? No? So it's back to John Helsel then. Nothing to say? So, right, a reply to John Kaiser. Do you have anything to say?
Yes, I mean, as I explained at the beginning, this is a procedural matter as much as anything else, but not to lose sight that it's to show the performance of the council. I just point out on page 105, they aren't actually loans that we've taken out, they're actually money that we're lending to other people. If you go back, as I say, the thing to note is the average interest rate we're borrowing at currently is 2.42, and one of the lowest rates available is a Public Works Loan Board, and even that's at 2.69, so we're doing pretty good. That's really all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'd like to invite members to vote on the recommendations set out in the report, please. Sorry?
Yes, hello.
Those in favour?
Sorry, yes, I mean, basically what I'm asking is the Executive and the Council to approve the Treasury Management Outturn Report and note the actual prudential indicators within the report. Thank you.
Okay. Those for? Those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Those against, presumably. Have I got a count? What about 20 there?
27.
Those against.
Those against? None. Those abstaining? I've got 18, 17. Okay. So it is carried. We now go on to question time. 37. Oh, sorry. Yes. Next item is changes to the Constitution. Would someone like to propose the changes, please?
Unfortunately, the member who was going to do it isn't here. I don't know why, but I'm quite prepared to do this. I believe we have a seconder.
Yes. Okay. That's Imogen as a seconder. Thank you. Sorry, who to speak? Yes. Do you wish to speak at this point?
I'm quite prepared to just stay. There are small but important changes to make the council work more efficiently. I can just run through them very quickly. The Wokingham Wellbeing Board, there's changes amended which are in the report. The other one is the way individual executive members' decisions work, and the application and scope of paragraph 3 of the report, which is section, God, I can't remember what it is. Sorry about this. Yeah. But the report's there for everybody to read, and if there's any questions, I'll endeavour to answer them.
Okay. Could I ask the seconder, Imogen, if you wish to speak now or reserve your right to speak?
I reserve my right. I've nothing to add.
Okay. And does anyone else wish to speak? No one? Back to the proposer, the seconder to speak if they haven't already done so. Imogen?
No, nothing.
No?
I don't need to speak, thanks.
Okay, we might as well move to the vote then. So, oh, John's got a right to reply, apparently. Do you wish to... No? Do you wish to speak or just...
No, I don't think so.
No, okay.
Thank you.
So we'll move to vote on the recommendations as set out. Thank you. All those in favour? Pretty well unanimous, isn't it? Yes, it seems to be unanimous. Are there any against?
It's unanimous.
No, it was unanimous. Good. Okay, so that is approved then. Now move on to item 38, which is the member question time. We have 30 minutes for this. Supplementary questions are allowed. Rochelle Shepherd-Dubay to ask you a question, please.
I ask the question standing in my name.
Of Pauline Jorgensen.
Thank you for the question, Rochelle. The development of Winnish Relief Road 2 and North Wokingham Distributor Road, west of Old Forest Road, has been agreed by the Council as a single project and is in contract with our major projects delivery contractor currently. Any change would delay the contract, increase traffic disturbance and incur unnecessary costs. Delivering the work as agreed by the Council brings huge advantages, for example, resource use and deployment, materials use and inter-site material use, driving down utility diversion costs, combining the site compounds, etc., and completing the necessary ecological work in both areas at the same time. This work will be followed by topsoil stripping, tree stump clearance, compound setup, utility diversion where practical, amongst other items, and that will take us up to the spring of 2020. We're currently reviewing the capability of bringing King Street Lane work forward with the programme, within the programme to October-November 19 in combination with planned advanced works. Should we undertake the roundabout work as agreed in isolation, this would increase the construction cost and cause additional inconvenience to drivers on the Reading Road, who would then be affected twice, once by the delivery of the easterly roundabout and the second by the North-Western Distributor Road section. Our strategy is to build the two roundabouts offline where possible, keeping free-flowing traffic along the Reading Road, and then through a quick series of on-carriageway works on the Reading Road to connect everything up. This approach will also allow better coordination of required utility diversions with one operation as opposed to a split approach.
Rochelle, do you have a supplementary?
I think you've missed my question somewhere in the process. I said both roundabouts included in this, but if we actually have these two roads, if we have the NWDR roundabout and the Winnish Relief Road, it will help both the residents of Wokingham and the residents of Winnish get to work easier rather than waiting for the whole project to be done all at once, because there are other parts that won't affect this quite as much.
So maybe we should have an offline conversation about exactly what you're suggesting, but currently it's all one programme. To split the programme into two pieces would cost about an extra £400,000. So yeah, but then you would have two site programme setups, and it would cost about an extra £400,000 to duplicate them and have two separate projects. But let's have an offline conversation. If we can do anything to speed things up, I'm happy to talk about it.
Right. The next question would be by Councillor Chris Smith, but as he's not here, there will be a written answer to that question. Then move on to Michael Firminger to ask his question of Pauline Jorgensen, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Mayor. My question, can the Executive Member for Highways provide me with a status update on the Council's plans to ease congestion?
Thank you for your question, Michael. We're very concerned about congestion. We're doing as much as we can to try and alleviate it. We've, for a number of years, worked hard to try and alleviate congestion throughout the borough through the development of new strategic roads and junctions, some of which we've been talking about a minute or two ago, collaborative planning and sensitive coordination of street works with effective communication with residents through the use of social media and promotion of the roadworks.org map. If anybody hasn't used roadworks.org, I'd very much recommend they go use it as the first step in planning any of their travel. It's a really, really useful site. As part of our proactive approach, we have secured £24 million for the funding of the Alberfield Relief Road, which I announced at the last council meeting. And in recent months, the council has established a dedicated congestion project team, which has identified 4 key areas of work to further reduce the impact of congestion. The first thing we're doing is reviewing our approach to street works, which includes a review of the sensitive street network The sensitive streets allow us to try and move roadworks where possible into times where they're not inconveniencing passengers or travellers on the road, because they try and avoid roadworks at peak times. We're also developing intelligent traffic signage, including the use of variable message signs to bring drivers the latest information about what's going on the roads. We've got improved focus on communications under Dave Allen, who's sitting over there, including much better social media interaction from the traffic team, and much better use of press releases thanks to our friends in the press. We're also doing a market research survey to see what we can do to further improve communications. And in the longer term, we'll be using real-time traffic monitoring to help the council manage the local highway network. We're making good progress on these work streams. We've already instructed the production of an intelligent traffic signage strategy and the market research survey. There's lots more to do, but we're very committed to making sure people have the right information available to plan their routes and to avoid roadworks where possible. And just to make the point that most of the roadworks in Wokingham Borough are actually nothing to do with the Borough Council. They're mostly to do with utilities and people like South West Water and Thames Water and such like. And we need to work around these utilities. We need to provide people with the right information to be able to plan their journeys. And that's what we intend to do.
Yeah, kind of on that. I've only just really heard that. The only thing I mentioned to that in my ward, Sonning, about a couple of Thursdays back, Thames Water were digging up in Thames Street to cause a very, very big traffic jam. I was stuck in it for about an hour or so just to try and get over the river. I was just really wondering, what sort of kind of punishments or fines that we can dish out to these utility companies, because to be perfectly honest, they really do take liberties with our roads and our residents who cannot get round to do anything. Thank you.
I think there's two things to consider here. If we've got emergency roadworks, and quite often some of these emergency roadworks that cause a lot of inconvenience are due to things like burst water mains or even gas leaks, we certainly can't insist that the utilities workers wait for a couple of weeks to do the works when they're convenient to us, otherwise we'd all be afloat. So we do have to give utilities companies the opportunity to repair things when it's an emergency as quick as possible. Nevertheless, they do need to communicate properly. They do need to put signage up on their roadworks so that we know what's going on. And if they do leave signs out after the roadworks are finished, there is a small penalty to them. It's not very much money. I can't remember exactly what it is. It's probably insignificant to a utilities company, but that's statutorily set. So we can fine people for leaving roadworks there longer than they should do, but in essence, it's not a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. My question is for Gregor Murray, the Executive Member for Climate Emergency. Gregor, you've stated publicly that you intend to ask residents for their ideas on how Woking Borough can reach carbon neutrality by 2030. Please can you update us on when this consultation will begin and what form it will take?
Thank you. I have a point of order. And the point of order relates to Rule 4.2.9.5, Scope of Questions B. Now that says a question cannot be asked if it is defamatory, frivolous or offensive. This is a frivolous question because yesterday Alison was the Vice Chair of a committee where Gregor spent 20 minutes telling us exactly about the duration, or the start of the consultation.
Not frivolous. Okay, it's not frivolous, Councillor. I understand the question was put in before, and it's not frivolous. So,
well, can I say that most members present today were not at that meeting yesterday? Right. Gregor, if you could update the full council when this consultation will begin, and if you could describe the form it will take. Thank you.
Mr Deputy Mayor, I have indeed previously stated that I intend to consult all Woking Borough residents and ask them their ideas on how we can reach carbon neutrality by 2030. And I'm very pleased to announce that this consultation will begin on September 26th, so a week today, using the Woking Borough Council online portal. Residents, businesses, schools, residents, groups, towns and parish councils and any other interested local parties will be welcome to respond to 4 simple questions and share with us their thoughts, feedback, ideas and suggestions on how we meet this most stretching of targets by 2030, as was agreed at our last full council meeting. I encourage anybody with an idea to share it. You may think others will have said the same thing, but repetition is good, things as it will show us the strength of feeling behind specific ideas across the borough. The consultation will be widely publicised using the Wokingham Borough Council social media forums and also using the print media. And I encourage everybody to get involved and send in your ideas. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your uncles and aunties, your colleagues, your neighbours, your classmates, your teachers, everybody, and make sure that they're contributing. If you can't get onto the portal, I encourage everybody to write to Wokingham Borough Council, write to me, write to any of the elected members of this chamber, and we will ensure that your ideas get added onto the list for consideration for the action plan and will be put in front of the cross-party working group of members. I will publish a summary of all of the ideas that we receive in order to ensure 100% visibility and clarity. Initially, the consultation will be open for 3 months, so until the end of December, but it is my intention that if it's successful, we will open it up and keep it as an ongoing consultation so that anybody that comes up with a great idea in 5 years' time, in the middle of the night while they're in bed, can go onto the Wokingham Borough Council website and share that idea with us so that we can achieve our stretching target.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Gregor, we all know that we are working hard to reduce, reuse and recycle, but would you agree that it is far better to reduce and reuse than to recycle? And could you tell me what the council plans to do to reduce the use of plastic?
Thank you, Councillor Swaddle, for that question. So I put forward a motion for this evening, and hopefully, if time permits, we will get to it, but we've got a lot of business to cover first. That motion will call on the Council to eradicate single-use plastics from our operations and from our supply chain. We appreciate that there is a degree of essential single-use plastics that the borough have to have. So for the use of some of our elderly residents who cannot eat food or drink water safely without using a single plastic straw. But in all other instances and in all other cases, we are looking to remove single-use plastics from our supply chain because, frankly, the impact that they're having on our environment is awful, it's devastating, and we need to play our part.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. My question is to the lead member for Environment and Leisure. Food recycling has been in place for some months now, and I'd like him to give us an update, please, on the current status and the progress made so far.
Thank you, Graham, for that question. It's going very well, if I may say so. Since April 2019, a total of 1,553 tonnes of food waste, Mr. Deputy Mayor, has been collected and recycled. On top of this, a further 214 tonnes of residual waste has been minimised from the blue bags and has therefore not gone to the landfill. The introduction of food waste has also had an indirect impact on dry recycling, which increases by 300 tonnes in the first 4 months of this year. We have continued to collect 18 tonnes a day, which equates to 90 tonnes a week, although tonnage has dropped slightly in July and August, probably due to school holidays. We are not complacent and continue to communicate and promote the service to maintain momentum. We are now working with managing agents and housing associations to introduce waste collections into multi-occupancies such as flats and apartments. Every tonne of waste diverted from landfill or energy from waste to recycling saves the council approximately £100. Diversion of 1,553 tonnes has come with the saving of £150,000 in 4 months, which is reinvested back into the system to support the new collection service.
I would therefore urge everyone to support this service, which increases our recycling and reduces our carbon footprint. Incidentally, Reading Borough Council have approached us as a shining example to learn from us as they are planning to introduce food waste service from next year.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I would like to ask the Executive Member for Planning what the results of the housing target consultation was.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Clark, for your question. We received just under 50,000 responses, of which 46,807, if you want the exact number, agreed with us. In their opinion, the government housing target for Wokingham is too high. We believe this is an excellent response, and although we firmly believe that that would be the response we got, it's now clear evidence that we can use moving forward. We will use this evidence and continue to use further evidence as we move forward in our argument that the current system is arbitrary and that this result is clear evidence that our residents think that the amount we're being asked to deliver is too much. We are required, as a lot of you know, by government to have a policy and work within the rules of guidance and developing a local plan, which we are doing. This is unfortunately not a matter of choice. It's something that we have to work to, and it's something that we would have to have in place, otherwise we will get development in places we don't want it, but it needs to reflect the housing needs. And if we're not successful, we will be saying to government that if you want us to accommodate these housing, we really need your proper support in working with our local MPs. We are calling on a massive upfront infrastructure funding so that the roads and other facilities needed can be provided early. We already heard this evening about several examples where housing comes after the infrastructure, and we have got a massive programme of upfront funding, but in some cases it doesn't deliver all of the infrastructure we need before the houses are finalised. We also need guaranteed protection, whereas developers building in areas that don't fit our normal proper plans and our guidance. We can also strengthen with local feeling the support that we need of our development. The other area we are also asking is all future developments are eco-friendly and fit within our environmental principles.
No, I don't.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. My question is to the Executive Member for Business and Economic Development. Can you please confirm to Council, in light of the recent acquisition of the Waitrose property asset in Twyford, the performance of the property investment portfolio as a whole?
Thank you for your question, Pauline, and thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. The make-up and performance of the investment portfolio is disclosed in a statement on the Council's public website, as we want to demonstrate our ongoing commitment to being transparent about how these funds are being invested. The link to the relevant page was promoted at our recent Investing for Success press release on the 12th of August, but it's actually easy to find. It's news.wokingham.gov.uk/news/investing for success. The portfolio statement, as at the 31st of March, is being updated in light of the latest acquisition and will be revised on the public website. The August press release confirmed that the rate of return on the portfolio as of the 31st of March, prior to Waitrose, was over 5.5%. Following the purchase of Waitrose, the rate is now just over 5.25%, reflecting the enhanced strength and security of income from this new asset. As a council, we're very pleased with the performance of the investment portfolio. It continues to generate an excellent return on our investment, which we are already using to fund essential services for local residents.
I have no supplementary.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'd like to ask the question standing my name.
Thank you very much for your question, Gary. I'm afraid we're unable to answer the question as the Council does not record or issue penalty notices to individuals or issued to vehicles found to contravene restrictions with no correlation to the driver's status, whether members, staff or visitors, at any point in the CPA process.
Yeah, thank you for that, Paul. In a way, I probably got the question not worded correctly. What I was really asking, I should say, is how many parking fines notices have been issued people using the shoot end car parks?
Sorry, Gary, I don't have that particular bit of information, but I can tell you that the total disabled parking contraventions that have been issued is 1,986, of which 1,278 PCNs were issued for an on-street code 40 offences and 708 PCNs were issued for off-street code 87 offences. But I will get you data about the individual car park here.
Thank you. Councillor Charles Margett, would you like to put your question, please, to Councillor Recurring Clerk?
Thank you. Would Councillor Clark basically agree to make representations to our local members of Parliament and central government concerning the need to ensure that all of our schools are effectively funded?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I note that the government has announced an additional £2.6 billion into the schools budget in 2020-21, of which £700 million will be earmarked for special needs and disabilities. However, we don't know how much Wokingham is going to get yet. Bearing in mind that Wokingham is the worst funded authority in the country, I contacted John Redwood a couple of months ago, and I did say to him, whatever Wokingham is going to get for our schools, it's not enough, and I want more. And he was very sympathetic. He agreed to make representation at the Minister for Education, and the officers are now busy preparing a business case to strengthen my request.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I'd like to ask the Executive Member for Health, Wellbeing and Adult Services the following question. How do we support the providers of care to our vulnerable adults in the borough?
Thank you, Councillor Loys. WBC obviously has a duty to understand its local market of care providers and to stimulate a diverse need of care to ensure that all the people we in the borough and their carers have a choice over how their needs are met and that they are able to achieve the things that are important to them. We recognise, however, that we cannot deliver success on our own, and we value the partnerships we've formed over many years in the local market. By continuing to support our local providers, we find creative and cost-effective ways of promoting health and well-being that meet the needs of all of our residents, especially the most vulnerable. Quality assurance is a vital part of what we do. It's a continual process by which standards are set and achievements are monitored. We're committed to ensuring that the services people receive are of the highest quality possible and the things that our partners and residents expect. Our quality assurance team, through assessment, work with all of our local providers to ensure that standards are met and that outcomes for people using services are achieved. Where necessary, the team work with providers to ensure that corrective action is taken and that all quality standards are improving. Our local providers have access to the Council's training platform called My Learning. This provides our partners with access to training on adult safeguarding, health and safety training and GDPR. Sustainability of the adult social care market is of major importance to ensure the safety, health and well-being of all vulnerable adults with a range of eligible social care needs. To support the sustainability of our market, we've invested an additional $770,000 in local provision, and to support it beyond there, we're continuing to invest in 2019, 2020 and beyond. We're currently working with the LGA to develop the market position statement. This is a document produced by the authority that outlines what support and care services people need and how they need them to be provided. It is envisaged that this will be completed by October 2019. Sure, very briefly, we're also restarting our provider forums, and the next one is on the 14th of October 2018.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I ask the question standing in my name.
Thank you for the question, Paul. It seems to be highways night tonight. We're currently undertaking a greenway programme across the borough. As part of the local transport plan, we're also compiling a list of cycling and walking requirements across the borough. The local cycling and walking infrastructure plan will build on this work and give us a formal recognised method of assessment which will help us prioritise works in future. The current work being undertaken on the LCWIP is being progressed following successful bid to the Department of Transport for funding in the form of technical support, match funded by WBC. The bid was based on progressing the LCWIP in the Wokingham town centre area only as an initial stage due to the limited support available. The plan is to continue the process of assessing on an area-by-area basis until we've covered the whole borough, and you may be aware that the Reading LCWIP covers parts of our borough, and in time we aim to have a fully integrated local cycling and walking infrastructure plan covering the whole borough and extending into our neighbours. The exact plan and how it's funded will depend on local transport plan 4 work, which is currently underway. This will identify priorities and help us plan all of our potential schemes and initiatives and make best use of the available funding. I recognise, like you two, that cycleways and paths do not finish at ward boundaries or town boundaries, and the important thing is to be able to get where people need to go, regardless of boundaries.
Middleborough, to ask your question of Pauline Jorgensen.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I ask the question standing in my name.
Thank you for the question, Andrew. This council appreciates that some residents would like a direct service to Wokingham town from Lower Early and Maiden Early. The council currently is currently in the process of updating local transport plan 4, which I referred to a minute or two ago. Once this has been adopted, a revised borough-wide bus strategy will be written. As part of this work will be undertaken for the bus strategy. Demand across the borough for bus services will be reconsidered. It should be noted, however, that in addition to the 4 and X4 services, there is actually also a regular train service departing from Early Rail Station and going to Wokingham, which I find very convenient.
I do. Could this also be used as an opportunity to reintroduce a bus stop at Brookside Close by the busy Brookside Surgery?
I recognise the constant need to put bus stops in the right places rather than the wrong places. And we'll look at that as part of the considerations.
Moving on quickly, Councillor Sarah Carr to ask your question of Gregor Murray.
Thank you. I ask the question standing in my name.
Mr Deputy Mayor, I can confirm that on September 3rd I spoke for approximately 5 to 10 minutes at the beginning of a presentation on the climate crisis held by Extinction Rebellion Wokingham. I can also confirm that on August 29th I met with several members of Extinction Rebellion Reading organising group to discuss our approach to climate emergency and our path forward in the coming months. As stated in the Extinction Rebellion Guide to Citizens' Assemblies, the purpose of such assembly is to 1. Listen, 2. Learn, 3. Deliberate, and 4. Decide on actions required to meet the objectives of net carbon zero, something Wokingham Borough Council has committed to doing by 2030 as part of our climate emergency declaration. Something else we've committed to is to establish a cross-party working group to investigate and propose further recommendations to help achieve a carbon-neutral borough reporting back in 6 months. Specifically, and I quote directly from the minutes of the last council meeting, the working group will invite, consult and involve as wide a participation from our local community as possible in order to create a broad consensus of how we contribute to the fight against the climate crisis. These are also similar to stated objectives of the Extinction Rebellion Citizens' Assembly. I've already announced that on September the 26th, we will begin a consultation with residents, asking them to feed in all of their ideas on how we tackle climate change across the borough. These ideas will be published for all to see. They will be brought to the working group to be discussed, debated and decided upon. We've already sought expert advice by opening lines of communication with, for example, Extinction Rebellion Reading. We're talking with Reading University about how we calculate our carbon footprint, and I welcome the invitation of other expert opinion to the meetings of the working group as laid out in the minutes of the last meeting. Once we have an action plan, elements will be subjected to further public and business consultation, but this cannot be done until we have a definitive list of the potential actions and measures. Residents' events to discuss climate crisis are already being organised across the borough. There is a Greener Wokingham event next September 25th, and I actively encourage input from all of these organisations.
Just a brief one. A consultation isn't really the same as a citizens' assembly, and I do get the fact that we are going to be talking to residents, but could I have confirmation, yes or no, are we going to have a citizens' assembly, please? Thank you.
To specifically answer that question, and it was the final paragraph of what I was going to say, to answer your question, I understand the objectives of the Citizens' Assembly. I feel that everything we're currently putting in place in terms of inviting public input, holding it to scrutiny and inviting expert opinion, in the short term we're already living up to the ideals and expectations of the Extinction Rebellion Citizens' Assembly. Once we have an action plan in place, though, I'll be happy to rediscuss the suggestion with Councillor Kerr and other members of the cross-party working group going forward.
Yes, Mr Deputy Mayor, I'd like to ask that in my name, thanks.
Adrian, we got to it. I welcome the question from Councillor Mather as an opportunity to update all members on a few key areas of the focus of the Council since we declared climate emergency at our July meeting. In order to be able to achieve carbon neutral by 2030, it is essential that we first must calculate the starting point of our carbon footprint currently is. Only from there will we begin to develop and implement an action plan that will both reduce and offset our carbon emissions between now and 2030. The most recent figures published by the National Atmospheric Emissions Authority estimated the carbon footprint of Wokingham Borough to be 771 kilotons in 2017. The good news is that that's tracked downwards since 2013 as a result of the work already being implemented across the borough and by our businesses and by our residents. Clearly, the increase in housing and population recently, though, will be adding to this figure. Working from two-year-old data, though, is clearly not ideal starting point. To enable a more accurate current figure, I have established a cross-council climate emergency officers implementation group, chaired by Graham Ebers, and that I've also attended. The key early task of this group will be to establish our carbon footprint baseline and a framework for ongoing monitoring, publishing of processes and reducing our carbon footprint across the borough. I've asked officers to review multiple approaches to calculating our carbon footprint to ensure the baseline number that we work from is as accurate as possible. Fortunately, as part of an increasing group of councils that have declared climate emergency, we have access to a growing wealth of data and techniques for calculating a carbon footprint. We also have access to a fantastic bank of knowledge and experience at the University of Reading. As soon as it is being calculated, it is my intention to publish the baseline carbon footprint so that it is clear all the work, the residents, how big we have a task ahead of us. Whilst I can't be specific about any potential gaps at this stage, I have asked officers to develop a draft monitoring framework that is both robust and practicable. I will, of course, share this with the cross-party working group on climate emergency, and I'm happy to share it with all councillors and residents once the methodology is finalised.
I have to ask you, Mr. Mayor, if you have a supplementary, hopefully not, but please.
No, I did, but it's quick. It's a yes or no, hopefully. Can the executive member, Gregor, confirm that both the construction and operating emissions of new houses, new roads and new commercial premises will be counted in the CO2 emissions? Thanks.
Yes, they will.
Thank you. I'm not quite sure who this goes to. It's about railways. We've talked tonight about climate change and about congestion. We have two railway stations in Winnersh. all three ward members have met with representatives of South Western Railways to talk about the lack of disabled access to both stations. There was a small pot of money to help with Winner's Triangle. It's nowhere near enough to do anything because it's up on an embankment and almost unmanageable for disabled access, even though it's an extra business park, so people with disabilities, mobility problems can't use it to get to work. And since South Western Railways took over Winner's Station, they have removed the ability to have ramps at the station to get off the train and up the slope because they say the slopes are too steep, even though they were perfectly fine before they took over the franchise. Could the executive member undertake to work with us to try and persuade South Western Railways to do something about disabled access to the stations?
Thank you for your question, Prue. I'm very much aware of the issue which causes people to have to get on at the wrong station and go backwards and forwards to Reading. There has been a recent announcement by the railways that there is a fund that we can bid for improving stations, so I've suggested to Highways that they bid for some money to improve Winner's Triangle because the access is not good enough. In fact, the whole station isn't good enough, but I'd be happy to meet with you and see what we can do together to move this forward.
Andy Croy next, please.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. My question is for Ulla Karim. As you know, Ulla, tomorrow has been declared the day of for a climate strike, and I know that students, young people at a school in my ward, the Bullmarsh School, are planning to not be at school, go on strike. Now, I understand that head teachers cannot but mark that down as an unauthorised absence from school. Will you join me in congratulating our young heroines and heroes, because they are heroines and heroes who are taking part in the climate strike, and by way of compensating them for this unauthorised absence against their name, will you perhaps look at awarding them some sort of certificate to recognise them standing up for their futures?
I'm sorry, but that is not the ward question.
Bullmarsh School is in my ward, and I have a particular resident who's raised this with me about their child who is also one of my residents.
Okay, all right, I'll do my very best. I can't promise you anything without discussing it with the officers, but coming from the same country as Greta, I am sympathetic to what these children are doing. I can't say any more. As you will understand, I need to speak to the officers. Thank you.
Charles Margetts, next.
Thank you. Question to Councillor Smith. A site in 6 Johnson Drive in Finchhampstead is due to go to planning appeal in October. 3 separate planning applications for housing have been made on this site in the last 4 years. Each one has been turned down by WBC. It's then been taken to appeal, basically to the Planning Inspectorate in Bristol. On one occasion, the developer withdrew the appeal on the day of the appeal. On another occasion, the developer lost the appeal. The third appeal is in October. Fighting these continual appeals has cost WBC hundreds of thousands of pounds and has led to my residents living with this unreasonable situation for the last 4 years. Do you agree with me that developers should not be able to continually subject residents to repeated planning applications on the same site where there is a clear record tested of appeal which shows that there is little chance of the application going through?
Thank you, Charles. Sorry? I was ahead of you. I absolutely agree, Charles. You know what I would like to do? Get rid of Bristol and allow our planning officers in this authority to run the authority and to run the planning process. I'm as frustrated as you. I get calls every day regarding situations like this. There has been various applications on this site, and what they've done over the period, they've reduced it from 56 houses, then down to 40 houses, then down to 35 houses. I hope we get to a resolution next month, but in the meantime, we will work with you and your residents with enforcements to make sure they comply.
Rachel Bishop-Firth, next, please.
Thank you. The new estate being built at Matthews Green has been promised a community centre. I am concerned because the community centre at Montague Park was, as was referred to earlier, delivered as an empty shell with no floors, no toilets, no heating. Can the council confirm that the Matthews Green Community Centre will be provided in a condition where it can be used as a community centre?
Thank you for that question. I know that we've had several approaches from various organisations to run that community centre, and we're still working on that, and I'm hoping that eventually somebody will come up with a good idea and the ability to run it, so wait and see.
Thank you. Councillor Jenny Cheng next, please.
I have a question for the Executive Member for Highways. Please can I have an update on the resurfacing work on Kingfisher Drive? I've heard that residents have concerns about the quality of the work.
Thank you, Jenny. I've been in a lot of conversations about Kingfisher Drive over the last few days, both on social media and with the officers, and I've seen some interesting pictures of the roads. I talked to Highways officers both last night and today a couple of times, and they're going to send a Highways inspector out to have a look at the road, although I would point out that the road isn't actually complete yet, and that the state of the road is not the same as the end state will be. Nevertheless, the Highways officers are going to send somebody out to make sure that the repairs are being done properly.
Okay. Councillor, Councillor Boyce, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a question for the Executive Member for Climate Change. I very much welcome the commitment by the Council to fit photovoltaic panels to all council-owned property. The new Bullmersh Leisure Centre, which is currently under construction in my ward, has a roof eminently suitable for a large number of such panels. However, the energy assessment submitted with the planning application states the inclusion of photovoltaic panels is not considered at this stage. It goes on to say that this can be revised at a later stage in the design. Surely, the inclusion of these panels while still at the construction stage is likely to cost less than retrofitting them. And furthermore, the financial gains from feeding into the grid will help considerably with the running costs of the centre. Could you tell us whether the leisure centre is going to have panels, and if so, when they will be fitted?
I can't commit to when they will be fitted. I don't know the answer to that. I would need to speak to the officers specifically. I completely agree with you that it would have been better to install them at the time of construction rather than retrofitting them later on. All I can say to you is I will commit to going away and having a look at it and seeing if there's an opportunity to install them sooner rather than later, because it would be my ambition that it would have them.
Councillor Rachel Burgess next, please.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. My question is about disabled parking provision. The criteria for blue badge holders has recently been extended to those with hidden and non-visible conditions. However, residents in my ward are already reporting a lack of disabled parking places in certain areas in the town centre. Bearing in mind the likely increase in demand for blue badges with extension of the scheme, what steps is the Executive taking to ensure disabled parking provision in the town centre fully meets the demand of our disabled residents and visitors?
Thank you very much for your question. We've been monitoring the amount of extra applications for disabled badges so far, and actually the demand from the extra invisible disabilities provision hasn't been as large as we expected or indeed feared. However, I'd be very interested in the areas that you think are short of spaces, and I would be happy to talk to you about where the spaces are lacking and what we could do to improve them.
Okay, Councillor Stephen Conway next, please.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Would the Executive Member for Climate Emergency care to distance himself from a recent Conservative leaflet which pours scorn on the idea of a green wall in Twyford as a way to help reduce pollution at the village crossroads? This rejection of a locally generated idea has gone down very badly in Twyford, and I have to say has irritated a local benefactor
the newly ennobled Conservative peer, Lord Brownlow, who is aware of the scientific evidence in favour of a green wall and is willing to fund it.
I've not seen the leaflet that you're referring to. I don't know who. I look forward to seeing it, and if you could do that, would be much appreciated, because I don't know who within our association would have put that out. But certainly it's not our policy, it's not what we are intending to do. You know, you and I have spoken about the Green Wall in the past. You know that I'm an active fan of it, and I would like to see it happen, provided that a site can be found that is suitable for it. But certainly if you provide me with that leaflet, I will definitely look into it.
Thank you. Councillor Ian Pittock, next please.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. This concerns the Gorse Ride project, and I really wish I didn't actually have to ask it. Can you please provide an update on the Gorse Ride project, given that word on the street is that management changes are occurring and you now intend to reduce the amount of social housing on the estate? Grateful if you could dispel residents' fears, re this, please. Thank you.
I don't know what the word is on the street, Ian. Well, not on the street, but as far as I'm concerned, the same numbers of affordable should be delivered on this estate. I made it very clear to members that now when we talk about affordable, we also talk about people who want to buy part of their properties. And I think that's quite important as well, that we give the people the opportunity to become homeowners, especially in an area where houses are so expensive. And I will be speaking about Gorse Ride a bit later on.
Councillor G, next please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is a question for Mr Deputy Mayor. This is a question for the Executive Member for Business and Economic Development. With the closure of the Denmark Street car park, there's been a few nasty incidents in the Cockpit Path car park because there's not very many places to park. My residents are getting a bit disappointed with the actions that are being taken by the council in order to sort out the Denmark Street car park. It's been mentioned in this meeting that avenues are being explored, but we can't see any avenues which are open to the council. And now, just yesterday, I think, the developers have stated that they're going to put in a new application. What avenues have been explored by the council, and when did the council actually start exploring these avenues for the Denmark Street car park? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. We've been looking at all sorts of things here. I don't intend to go into too much of the detail because some of them include very complex legal advice. But we have been looking at this for some time. We can't stop anybody putting an application. They can do that any time they want. And I think I made that fairly clear when I asked my colleague's question about who was here earlier about what would we do about dealing with this further application. So I think let's wait and see what happens there. As I said, I don't intend to go into the detail here of what we can or cannot do because it was a very complex set of legal advice. But we'll do what we can as soon as we can.
Councillor Imogen Shepherd-Dubé next, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I have Wokingham train station in my ward, and around Wokingham train station we have a number of streets that suffer for all-day commuter parking, just parking there all day. We've had two petitions, recently one for Townhouse Lane Garage, where the Townhouse Lane is. We've had one for Caroline Drive. There've also been in the past ones for Meadow Road. I'd like to know what the council is doing to stop people from parking on these streets all day, and why some of the single yellow lines that have been asked for have not been implemented. Thank you.
Imogen, I've not seen the particular requests for those roads, but I'd be happy to talk to you about them. I recently, yesterday in fact, had a meeting with Angus and some residents near Crowthorne Station who have a very similar problem. The issue we've got is that people are perfectly entitled to park on public roads unless we put parking restrictions in, and the downside is that if we put parking restrictions in, what generally happens is they move to another road. So it's a very difficult problem to solve, but I'd be happy to come and talk to you about it.
I'd like to ask the Executive Member for Children's Services. I'm sure you're aware that recently a fire broke out in a nursery school in my ward. Can the member please update the residents of Norreys as to what action the council has taken in helping to keep this vital service open for local parents and their children?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Ashridge Nursery is not owned by the council. It's privately owned and it's run by a local management company. When we found out that there had been a fire, senior officers of Children's Services contacted the nursery and offered help and support, and are presently negotiating an area within Brambles, the children's centre, for use by the nursery. As of yet, we don't know the cause of the fire. We know that 80% of it caused smoke damage. So it may be that they will be at the Brambles for some time.
I'd like to ask, I'm not quite sure who's in charge for this. When are they going to repair the bridge in Winnish Meadows over the pond? It's been broken for 3 years, and 3 years is a little bit long time. It's actually used by some of the school children to look at pond life and things like this.
Thank you for that question. I wasn't aware of this, so I'll definitely look into it and I'll come back to you.
Statements by the leader exec members, and you have 20 minutes for this. Does anyone wish to make statements? John Kaiser. Yes. John Kaiser to start with, please. Oh, John Halsall or John Kaiser. Both of you had your hand up, so can you pick which one wants to go first? John Kaiser.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, thank you very much. The questions have been so comprehensive that I need to skip some of what I've said because there's a repetition. However, during the last 3 months since you honoured me as leader of the council, I continue to be astounded by the high quality of our officers, their commitment and the breadth of their engagement. They are well motivated, positively addressing issues, and have a can-do attitude which is pervading everything we do. The sparks given from this blue sky thinking is electrifying. We've been able to achieve a huge amount in a very short time, and is a compliment to Susan Parsonage and her team and to the executive. Only last Thursday, as Ulla Corinne mentioned, within hours of a fire at a private nursery, we had mounted an exercise to where they could be open on the following Monday, which is a great compliment to our officers. Of course, we do not have the powers to do everything and cannot resolve every problem. Some of our members who constantly criticise officers in the council would do well to remember that. However, the borough is there to serve residents and improve the quality of the lives of the residents. Our officers are fully committed to do just that and do an excellent job. Coming around the corner, or maybe or probably, will be Brexit. The merits of or not are not for here. However, we have been planning in the event of leaving without a comprehensive withdrawal agreement for some considerable time. A wide-ranging risk asset register has been established by a cross-functional team of officers under the chairmanship of our resilience manager and are in the process of enacting robust countermeasures. The process is integrated with the national preparations. At the last time of asking, these preparations are restricted, so I am unable to share them. But I will be doing so through the leaders and the executive, if relevant, as time nears. Pauline Jorgensen will be the executive member heading up this activity. Bridge Farm has been in the Waste and Minerals Plan for many years and is only now that there has been considerable local opposition. I have been frankly surprised that it was not removed many years ago, particularly given the quantity of housing built nearby. However, I can confirm that it has now been removed from the Waste and Minerals Plan. I can also announce that Pauline Jorgensen will be bringing forward a paper to assemble the best legal team and planning team that we can muster to contest any appeal which there may be for this and any other important appeal that there may be in the future. Because of these two vital and important activities, I will be working on highways to ensure the momentum continues and will share this portfolio with Pauline. Congestion is at the top of our concerns for our residents, which has been well covered by the questions. We can only do what we're doing to expand the network, which is building 4 new roads. However, this capacity will be consumed very quickly. Wokingham Borough is the highest concentration of vehicles per household in the UK. We are unlikely in the short to medium term to affect this. So we must be smarter in using our roads, using technology, planning and information. We are in the process of identifying the sensitive roads, which incidentally doesn't make the other roads insensitive. We are looking at various technological solutions for switching traffic lights and diverting traffic. In the short term, a sophisticated system is now being used to identify the impact of streetworks and make them off-peak. We were delighted to receive the 50,000 responses to the consultation. As Wayne said, approximately 95% were against the government's housing target. The government is now aware of the strength of feeling. I'm very grateful to the residents, the members of this council who encouraged responses. The next steps are to negotiate with government our local plan update. I'm awaiting imminent dates to see the new ministerial team. The climate change agenda is now very well advanced, and including elimination of single-use plastics, which we may not get to at the motion tonight. Primary health concerns are being pointed out to the CCG in a new forum of WBC, NHS and CCGs. New initiatives are being planned for fly tipping, travellers and vandalism. And finally, the Council response to the Heathrow consultation was the support of the Council to be conditional on the need to reduce the emission of greenhouse gases, including carbon emissions, not the status quo, the need to reduce the current emissions, and to demonstrate a clear pathway to carbon neutrality by all means, which may include offsetting. It being demonstrated through monitoring at a suitable site within the borough that any increase in the proposed number of overflights in Wokingham Borough will have no adverse effect on the health and quality of life of residents. Yes, Deputy Mayor. The need for Western Rail access and associated improvements to the Twyford area station. As a council, we must protect jobs and the economy, as well as the environment. It's not a binary choice. We must do them all. Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I will add into the Gorse Ride question and also Steve's excellent presentation. Wokingham Borough Council backed Gorse Ride regeneration programme has taken a significant step forward with the start of the construction of the first phase of this £8 million scheme. The former Cockayne Court care home and 7 surrounding bungalows were demolished in late 2018, and these will be replaced with 46 new homes ranging from 3-bedroom to 1-bedroom apartment upon completion in late 2020. These new properties will be made available across a range of affordable housing tenures, including social rent, affordable rent and shared ownership, as well as purchase by the existing homeowners within Gorse Ride community. The work forms part of the much wider community generation project in Hampstead. In total, regeneration will provide 280 new social affordable homes while enhancing the community in which they sit. There is a very strong community, as we heard earlier on in Gorse Ride. and this marks the first step of its regeneration for the existing community as well as prospective new residents. Council officers and staff have worked with tenants throughout the planning process. The planning application for phase ride at Gorse Ride Phase 2 is expected to be submitted in late 2019. Having a home is a basic human right, and no matter what level of homelessness in the borough, to be homeless means you're 100% homeless. Coupled with the impact of homelessness, this can be devastating for individuals, families, and homelessness can affect everything that people do: health, education, and employment. Reducing homelessness and rough sleeping is a key priority for the council. Wokingham Borough is committed to supporting those at risk of homelessness and people who sleep rough. The council has a new draft strategy the consultation will run from the 9th to the 27th of September. The strategy has 4 key priorities: early intervention and prevention, and working towards ending rough sleeping and tackling hidden homelessness, people who are back home, sofa surfing and so on, building more affordable homes and supporting our vulnerable adults. To address these priorities, the Council is proposing to support the development of a night shelter, work long time with rough sleepers, looking closely at homelessness in the borough, and to reduce the use of emergency and temporary accommodation for the homelessness. The last issue I'd like to speak about is fly tipping. It's become an all too common occurrence in parts of the borough, and I'd like to announce, in conjunction with the Executive Member for Environment and Leisure, a new council initiative to deter fly tipping. Residents and landowners are inconvenienced. It's dangerous and unsightly, on top of which the cost to the council in time and money to clear up fly tipping, which could be invested in worthwhile services such as adult care and highways. To combat this, the council will be launching a new project. We will call it Countryside Watch, looking to reduce fly tipping in Wokingham, working with landowners, parish councils, residents and the police. With the council's initiative, we will be looking to offer a range of measures which will hopefully lead to the reduction of fly tipping and its consequences. Actions such as warning posters, the sort of "you're being watched" message, and penalties clearly displayed supplied to landowners and parish councils to display in sites which suffer from persistent fly tipping. Investigate the use of mobile CCTV, covert mobile CCTV. Fly tipping direct line number into the council. Encourage residents to report registration numbers and fly tipping incidents they may witness, anonymously if they wish to. Produce leaflets for builders, merchants and other outlets. Highlight council's large waste disposal service that we offer. Education, presenting at schools on general littering, working with the police to encourage them the stopping of vehicles carrying suspect load. And any companies caught fly tipping will be blacklisted from the council's contract, as well as naming and shaming. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I am pleased to announce that Wokingham Borough Council has now completed the first phase of the expansion of Addington School in Woodley. There are now 2 new multi-use games areas. Sensorial activities are crucial for brain development, and therefore a new sensory path which allows for play using our 5 basic senses has been created. And for those who don't know what that is touch, sight, hearing, smell, and taste. We've also extended the car park. The next phase will be to build a single-story block with 4 classrooms, a cafe, and a common room. These improvements to Addington will make it possible for the school to enroll another 50 students next year. Once again, schools and academies across Wokingham have achieved some outstanding outcomes in external tests and exams, thus making Wokingham one of the best places in the country for children to learn and grow up. The data in relation to Progress 8 is still to be validated and will not be available later in the year. But I can tell you some of the provisional outcomes of the statutory assessments. The EYFS percentage of pupils achieving a good level of development was 77%. The Key Stage 1 percentage of pupils achieving expected level or above was in maths 81%, last year it was 76. Writing 74, last year 70. Reading 80, last year 75. Key Stage 2 percentage of pupils achieving expected level or above, maths 84, last year 79. Writing 84, last year 78. Reading 81, last year 73. Key Stage 4 percentage of pupils achieving 9 to 4 at GCSEs. English 82, last year 62. Maths 79, last year 60. English and maths combined 73. Key Stage 4A level provisional outcomes A to C 74%. So I hope you will like to join me in congratulating our children and students, because this is a very, very good result. Can we have a show of hands, please? Thank you. The Northern House School Trust has recently informed the Department for Education and the Regional Schools Commissioner that they would not be able to run the 5 schools within their trust. This has resulted in the Regional Schools Commissioner seeking alternative providers. Wokingham has continued to use and support the local provision and currently has about 30 children placed at the school. It is intended that we will continue placing children at the school, subject to a new sponsor being found. This forms part of our long-term strategy to make use of local resources to support children with additional needs. Thank you very much.
Pauline Jorgensen next, please.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. As you might guess, most of my postbag covers 3 topics: road resurfacing, congestion and parking, and there's a lot of it. I'm pleased to say that we've just published our next quarter's road resurfacing plans, which show we've used available funds, helped by additional government pothole funding of 1.117 million, to make some progress in resurfacing residential roads which previously have failed to meet the threshold for resurfacing in our very constrained financial environment. We also, I'm pleased to say, performed 298 repairs in August alone. I'm determined to continue to improve the quality of our roads as much as funds allow, and we are significantly increasing the funding in the budget next year for road repairs. John has elegantly covered some of the things that we're doing jointly on congestion, so I won't go into that again. But we also recognise that dangerous and illegal parking causes particular concern, especially around school pick-up and drop-off, and we're doing something about it. Enforcement of these transgressions through fixed penalty notices can only be carried out by the police. But I am pleased to announce that we've gained agreement from the police that we can now introduce parking information notices, PINs, which will allow our officers to ticket cars parking on corners and on pavements. Details of locations and vehicles involved will be collected and passed on to the police to take action as they deem necessary. We will pilot a PIN scheme from October this year and review the success of this at the end of the year, with the intention of continuing it if it proves successful. We will also increase the number of parking enforcement officers by 6 in order to respond to residents' demand for improved enforcement and to allow us to improve enforcement and safety around schools in particular.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I'd just like to draw your attention to some of the initiatives that I'd like to put in place to help the residents of the borough. My colleague and friend, Councillor John Kaiser, has already outlined an action plan for fly tipping, and I totally and wholeheartedly support that. I'll be putting that into action very, very soon, and I'm hoping that this action plan will go a long way to either dramatically reduce or get rid of the borough of the ugly fly tipping. Food waste I've already talked about, which is going very, very well, and these have gone well during the first quarter, and approximately 6% of the food waste has added to a 56% overall recycling rate in the first quarter, with tonnages holding up in second quarter, which is July and August. Plans are now being put in place to start collections in flats in a coordinated way from the 1st of October. Rats. We've had some problems, or quite a few problems with rats. We're aware that there are a number of areas in which the borough experience significant problems and we're looking to establish a cross-agency approach to address this issue and hoping to include Thames Water as part of our action. The first meeting of the officer group will take place very, very soon, and we'll work up an action plan about which we will brief you about this in the due course. And lastly, the new Bulmesh Leisure Centre, which is taking shape very nicely, and it's well on the course for completion, hopefully in the spring of next year. And the new facility will be wonderful news for the borough residents, and who can look forward to a six-lane, 25-metre pool and ancillary facilities for the residents to enjoy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I wanted to take a moment to update you and all members of progress within Optilis. The transfer of statutory services back to WBC from Optilis is running to schedule. The tube consultation is underway and we expect the staff to transfer on the 1st of November. This will create one clear care pathway for Wokingham residents and will improve the quality of service that we offer. We're also resetting the structures of the governance of the company in agreement with our partners at RBWM. The new strategy of the company will be focused on efficiency, quality and innovation rather than growth. The governance of the company has been slimmed down to give more control to the executive and senior officers. This is more efficient and enables the company to react quicker to changes in the market, and recruitment for a new CEO will shortly be underway. We will then begin the process of making the provider services as efficient as possible, and will benchmark them against the marketplace to ensure the taxpayer always gets the best value for money and the resident always gets the best quality of care. Plans are underway right through to 2022. These steps have created an immediate, significant in-year efficiencies. Once all of this is in place, we will be able to use Optilis to increase the range and diversity of care services across the borough for all of our residents.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Mayor. We're currently looking at what we're doing with the housing companies. As you probably know, there's been a major change of all the boards, and we are now including colleagues from other parts of the council that will also be involved. We as a council actually deliver homes from lots of different areas, believe it or not. I mean, so we've got regeneration, they deliver their own homes, we've got the HRA, we've also got the housing companies. We've got 3 housing companies, one of them is a registered provider, one of them delivers the actual building of the houses. It does seem strange that we have 3 areas in the council that actually does this. So what I'm trying to do at the moment, I'm trying to pull together a strategy where we will be able to deliver homes, and we will have one place where those homes are delivered. We have our registered provider where those homes will probably be parked, which will be affordable homes, and they will be funded in various ways. My ambition with regards to this is I've been told it's too ambitious, but when we look around what we've got in the pipeline and what we're already doing at the moment, I don't think it is. The ambition is a 145. Basically, that's 1,000. That's for us to deliver 1,000 homes in 4 years, making a return of 5%. I believe that's perfectly possible. We've already got the houses that we're building for the town centre, which is around 100 plus. We've got other sites that we're looking at, and I think we're probably going to be achieving that. It's very important that we use all the resources that we've got within the council. It all works together. We should be accounting, using the same accountancy staff. We should be using the same consultancy staff, even the same auditors we should be using, believe it or not. But I think we really do have to have a commitment to the residents in this borough to providing the affordable homes that we know are needed in this borough due to the very high house prices. So this will be going through, and we'll be starting next week at the first board meetings at WHL. That will then filter down to Loddon Homes and Berrybrook Home as well. So we have a very exciting future in front of us with regards to providing homes. I mean, if you go back to the 1950s, it was councils that provided homes. It was the councils through the new town development agencies. For the only time 300,000 homes had been delivered was when they were being delivered by councils. So it's not something that's unusual. We just need to get back into the habit again. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I propose this motion. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, again. Clean air is one of the basic requirements of healthy environment for all of us to live, work and bring up our families. In 2017, there were 38.9 million vehicles on the UK road network, 52% petrol, 45% diesel, and the average age of a car was 8.1 years, and an HGV 7.5 years. However, nitrogen dioxide emissions from road transport in 2016 was 299.8 thousand tonnes, with 42% coming from diesel cars and 33% from vans. In addition, 13.4 thousand tonnes of particulate matters 2.5 were also admitted into the air as well, mostly coming from tyre wear, road abrasion, diesel cars and brake wear. The transport sector is the worst greenhouse gas emissions polluter in the UK, with 27% of the total 468 million metric tonnes. Poor air quality remains the largest environmental risk to public health. Air pollution also has a direct impact on the natural environment, contributing to climate change, reducing crop yields and polluting our oceans. Road transport is a major source of air pollutants, including 34% of nitrogen oxide, contributing to 80% concentrations at roadside. As a highway authority, Wokingham Borough Council has a specific duty to bring forward measures to improve air quality and has declared 3 air quality management areas, but tackling the overall poor air quality across our borough is the key objective. Technology is changing the way that road vehicles are powered. The petrol and diesel engines are slowly being replaced by low-emission electric-powered vehicles. However, the switch to these vehicles is not fast enough and needs encouragement with electric charge points made available at strategic locations. There are significant opportunities for sustainable transport options to simultaneously support clean growth, increase physical activity and reduce emissions, contributing to local air pollution. Fewer young people are learning to drive and buying a car. The trend needs to be harnessed quickly so they are future generations that can put sustainable travel as their first choice. The National Travel Survey indicates 25% of trips were under 1 mile and 68% were under 5 miles. Many of these trips could be changed to sustainable mode, especially cycling with the right infrastructure in place. We need to clean up the air that we breathe urgently, as poor air pollution is literally killing us all. Therefore, I call on this council to commit to introduce a low emissions transport strategy that will sit under the local transport plan and will include clearly stated objectives, smart targets, strategies and tactics. Thank you.
Mr Deputy Mayor, I put forward a proposed amendment to this motion, which changes some of the wording in the final paragraph from a low emissions transport strategy to a strategy to lower transport emissions.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. As it's such a minor change, I accept it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I support this motion wholeheartedly. We cannot hope to achieve our climate emergency objective of being carbon neutral by 2030, to improve our air quality and to cut congestion without taking action to reduce emissions from traffic and transport across the borough. Transport will therefore be a key work stream of our climate emergency action plan. As part of the climate emergency consultation that I announced earlier this evening, I hope and believe that our residents will generate numerous suggestions of how we can improve traffic flow, cut congestion, adopt green strategy transport plans, introduce new technologies and optimise current resources in order to dramatically cut our emissions and offset the remainder. Having a clear transport strategy that reduces emissions while still being practical for residents' lives is clearly important. I would argue, though, that this strategy would be best developed once we have the benefits of our residents' ideas and suggestions, and as such that developing a strategy to lower transport emissions becomes a work stream of climate emergency and be used to educate and adapt our local transport plan as and when required between now and 2030.
Thank you. So, Councillor Andy Croy next, please.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Paul, for bringing this motion forward. I've spent a lot of time this week listening to, frankly, a lot of waffle on climate change and a lot of hot air that will have no impact at all. This is the first credible contribution that I've seen from any member of this council. So thank you very much, Paul. I think you really do understand the size and the scale and the scope of the challenge we face. Traffic provides 20% of the carbon budget that we spend, and that's not including the motorway traffic. You throw in the motorways, you get 40%. We need to be looking at big radical changes in how we live, how we transport ourselves and our goods if we're going to have any impact at all. There's been a lot of stuff mentioned in the meeting yesterday, and frankly, as I said, it is hot air. It's a waste of time. This is the sort of thing we need to be doing. So thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I too wholeheartedly support this motion. We need a strategy to lower emissions in our borough. The good news is that our council's ability to lower emissions from transportation is considerable. Judgments made when planning new developments, our borough transportation policies, decisions about new and existing infrastructure, and choices relating to supply chains and the sizable fleet of council-owned vehicles are just a few examples of the significant levers available to this council. Before flagging some key issues that ought to be considered as part of a strategy to lower emissions, however, we must be clear about two matters. Firstly, a strategy to lower emissions must be carefully developed in conjunction with and support Wokingham's Climate Emergency Action Plan. However, a word of caution. We should be alert to the potential for elements of emissions reduction and climate emergency action to conflict with one another and for unintended consequences, whereby actions to support one may sometimes undermine the other. This points to the need for coordination and potentially, at times, compromise. Second, plans, strategies and actions must not only have a borough-wide, but a cross-borough focus. It's especially important never to believe that the focus should only be on existing areas within our borough with poor air quality. The following, by no means exhaustive list, shows that strategy to lower emissions will need to encompass a wide range of activities. For instance, action to tackle the many and varied highways conditions that contribute to air pollution problems. Improving transport networks and infrastructure to encourage more walking, cycling and the use of public transport, supporting the rapid growth of a borough-wide EV charge point network, facilitating travel behaviour change and raising awareness and public understanding of air quality and climate change. More partnerships that will help tackle air quality, including partnerships with employers, neighbouring boroughs and public transport companies. Reducing emissions arising from WBC's own activities, such as from staff business travel, procuring electric vehicles and careful examination of supply chains. A meaningful commitment to tackle the problems of poor air quality and the imperative of lower emissions cannot be negotiable, because it's ultimately both a commitment to life and a commitment to all future generations.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I'm not entirely sure what Andy Croy's reference to hot air was yesterday, but this motion is germane to what we're doing on both congestion and climate change. The congestion programme that we're engaged in is a short, medium and long-term process. I spoke about the short-term process in that we cannot do much about the quantity of vehicles in the short term, as we're the borough with the highest concentration of vehicles per household. Neither can we do much about the network of roads that we have, but we can get the traffic to move smarter. That is what we're engaged in the short to medium term. This borough has been committed for a long, long time to greenways and moving people from cars to other forms of transport. All of the stuff that we're doing in terms of the environment is getting people to be more healthy, and it is an essential part of the programme which has been going for some time. In addition to which, the various strands of climate change work include, and have always included, lower emissions and air quality. So we welcome this motion because it all it restates is what we're already doing. So thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I very much support this motion. I think reducing congestion has got a significant part to play in reducing pollution and making the air we breathe cleaner. I've long held that you certainly don't want to pump anything into the air that you have to breathe in if it's toxic, and I think we need to do more to reduce congestion. We're working on new roads, smart traffic lights, proper signage, allowing people to avoid congested areas and making sure that the congestion is as low as we can make it. It's also important that we generate strategic cycle routes, and we've talked about that earlier today with the Local Transport Plan 4, joining up our cycleways to mean that people that can cycle to work get the opportunity to cycle to work safer, and they don't have to cycle on the sides of roads as much as possible, and that we build cycleways that are truly usable rather than some of the other cycleways that we've had in the past that aren't really suitable for commuting on. We also are encouraging people to use public transport, and we do subsidise some bus services in the area. We're looking to increase charging points across the borough. That work is led by Neil Carr, one of our officers. I'm pleased to see, for instance, the recent opening of a large bank of charging points at the Moat House Hotel. The more charging points we have, the more people are able to use electric vehicles. And of course there's charging points in the Borough Council as well. The way to change behaviour is often through the influence of the younger generation. We recently had a cycling competition at schools to increase cycle and scooter use. This wasn't trivial. The primary schools made significant efforts to actually massively increase the amount of cycling and scootering to work. The kids loved it. We had 3 schools before the summer who achieved the bronze level award, which gave them some funds to buy cycle-friendly facilities in the school. Some of them chose to buy cycle helmets, which they could then give to kids that couldn't afford them, to allow them to use cycles to get to work. And there's also some sharing of cycles and that sort of stuff. This is the sort of initiative that really helps. The children will nag the adults into changing their behaviour, and I think it's fundamentally important that we harness the enthusiasm of children, which is really impressive, and significantly achieve some change of behaviour. It also was great fun. They loved it. They really much more enjoyed it than they enjoyed sitting in a car in a traffic jam. Finally, I'd like to agree with Andrew. I don't want to see actions to deal with CO2 emissions lead to other forms of pollution. It's very, very important that we don't replace CO2 with heavy metal pollution and groundwater pollution from poorly executed replacements to CO2.
Thank you. There are no more speakers then. Can I ask the seconder if they now wish to speak?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This motion is actually of personal significance to me, and in order to explain why, I want to introduce the council chamber to another member of my family this time, my 6-year-old son Leighton, who up until a year ago was actually a fit and healthy little boy. In the last year, though, he started to develop an allergy to cats. It started around the time he began at his new school, which has the children's play area backing onto one of the often heavily congested major artery roads of Wokingham town, one of the schools that won one of those awards. They did do a good job. Whilst we don't own a cat, he's been around cats' friends' houses all his life, never had a problem, but we started to notice it about a year ago. And it started red itchy eyes, the usual stuff, but it's got progressively worse. And recently we were visiting my brother who has a cat, so we started to dose him up on antihistamines 5 days in advance to get him ready for it. We didn't stay very long at my brother's house. He came out in hives all over his face. His breathing became very laboured and wheezy. He was coughing so much. He was in floods of tears because it hurt so much. And the GPs told us this is now an allergy-induced asthma, something he didn't have a year ago. And as such, my husband and I are concerned that this could be linked to air pollution. More and more these days, people are suffering with allergies, and science has proven that one of the main contributing factors is the rise in air pollution. And it's not just allergies that air pollution causes or affects. There's a whole range of chronic illnesses people suffer from, such as heart disease, asthma, cancer. There's so many others out there. We talk about air pollution contributing to deaths. To be more specific, air pollution shortens people's lives due to the chronic illnesses they develop. And because of those chronic illnesses, it actually makes that quality of life so much poorer than it needs to be. Air pollution is now the #1 environmental cause of premature death in the world. And a major contributor to air pollution is transport. And Wokingham is one of the highest car-owning boroughs in the country. We are here in this council chamber to make decisions that make people's lives better, and one way that can and must be done is by supporting this motion. One of the initial things that will need to be done to make our measures effective is actually building awareness of the issue. I'm so pleased to see that this has actually already started with the introduction of the turn off your engine signs placed in key areas where traffic is often sat idling. It's a really good start, and may I suggest for best practice we actually look at some of the initiatives Mayor Sadiq Khan has introduced in London to raise awareness and tackle the problem. And just in response to one of the public members' question, Jim Swan's question, who was actually talking about this, one of the things Sadiq Khan done is set up a volunteering group. People go out with high-vis jackets and actually go up to idling cars, knock on the window and ask them to turn the engine off. It's actually people not understanding and even realising it's a problem. So it's a really simple way that we could actually tackle what he was bringing up. There's clearly a will amongst the officers to do that, so let's now give them the mandate to give them the way to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm very pleased with the support that this council has given to this motion, Air pollution from transport is a major issue for public health as well as the environment. Public Health England reported that health and social care costs of air pollution just in England could reach 5.3 billion by 2035. This is a cumulative cost for diseases where there is a strong association with air pollution, such as coronary heart disease, strokes, lung cancer and child asthma. When weaker cases are added, this cost rises to 18.6 billion. With this Council's local transport plan being revised, it is now an opportunity to set the Council's strategies and policies on the right track to tackle these harmful emissions and make Wokingham a healthier place to live, work and visit. Also, air pollution has a direct impact on climate change, and this strategy will assist towards the delivery of the climate emergency. The electric car overall is cleaner, is part of the solution, but we don't want everyone switching to this type of vehicle, as that won't tackle our congestion that we endure on a day-to-day basis, nor will it reduce the deadly particulate matters 10 and 2.5. I thank this chamber for your support. Thank you.
One. Would the proposer like to... Oh, sorry. Can you... Count it. 1, 2. I get that to be 20, dear. I'll make that 20, dear. Hands going up and down, up and down.
Also put their hands up again.
Yeah, if you want to extend it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
No.
21?
20. I made it 20. Can we have those against? Can we have those against, please? Against extending it. 1, 2. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15,
21, 22.
22.
Yeah, we said it's not carried.
It's not carried. Is Ian Pittock, if you'd like to speak, please.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Well, I'll stop laughing.
Yeah. Right. Do you have a seconder? Yes. Paul Fishwick, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. The motion is, this council does not support the expansion of Heathrow Airport. There is so much to say. So little time. I'm going to concentrate... No, I'll say that again. I'm going to leave the detailed discussion of the business, housing, transport and environmental impacts to others, although I will refer to them at various points. I shall concentrate on how we got to this point where WBC currently supports the expansion with some considerations. In 2013, an executive member attended the Berkshire Local Enterprise Panel where they gave WBC support for the Heathrow expansion plan. There was no prior consultation, no subsequent debate and no collective decision. And by the way, that executive member had a son who was a British Airways pilot. a clear conflict of interest. The Conservatives promised a debate. Members have been waiting for 6 years. In spring 2018, last year, an executive member signed off an individual executive member decision paper supporting Heathrow expansion. Again, there was no consultation, no debate, no collective decision. Now we bring ourselves up to date. A few days ago, the leader of the council, my friend John, responded to a consultation over the summer by Heathrow. I do recognise that John, the leader, has made some steps in the right direction by acknowledging the need to address transport and environmental issues. More about that in a minute. But again, there was no proper WBC consultation, no debate, no collective decision prior to another individual executive member decision paper being signed off. I'm told that the request made by us to Heathrow to delay WBC's submission until after this meeting was refused. But we know in reality that we'll have to accept the submission some 3 days late, given this council meeting. Otherwise, they would have been rebuked at subsequent hearings. We are, after all, a local authority. As to the latest individual executive member decision paper, this states that Conservative-led WBC supports, repeat, supports the expansion of Heathrow, subject to conditions. But these conditions have got some holes. I'm not going to go through them all. I'm going to let some others do that. I'll just touch on a few of them. Heathrow is hiding behind carbon offsetting. And this is now a widely discredited technique. WBC plans to monitor pollution. But it's going to be a bit late after the runway's built for us to turn around and say, dig it up. Heathrow is depending upon a Western rail access link, which has been talked about for years, and the build of which is not under the control of Heathrow. Neither is the Southern Rail access that they're also relying on. And I have to say, I really am not convinced that building a 50,000, I'll say that again, a 50,000 space car park for the Heathrow expansion is the way to encourage people to use public transport. And those additional cars will be using what are already clogged up roads. It also means more houses in WBC for the extra people that would get employed there. When we have already agreed in this council, and it's all of you, supported by tens of thousands of our residents, that we wish to push back on additional houses. I have to say to our Conservative colleagues, there is a danger that our recently declared climate emergency will come across as a mere tick box exercise if you do not support this motion against expansion. I also say to the Conservative members in particular that they should not fear changing WBC's current support for Heathrow expansion to one of outright rejection. No conditions, just say no. Since members, the current members, have not been involved until now in collective decision making.
Councillor, your time's run out.
On something that is so detrimental to our lives. Mr. Mayor, I will be asking for a named vote. Could I have some support for that, please?
Only need 10, isn't it?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Deputy Mayor. There's more than enough.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So they can have a name vote.
Does Paul Fish-Wick?
Yes. Councillor Fish-Wick, you are the seconder. Do you wish to speak now or speak later?
Yes, please, Deputy Mayor. I second this motion. Heathrow Airport is already the largest UK airport with a capped 480,000 annual flights. With a third runway, that could mean 740,000 flight movements, impacting on the surrounding area, including Wokingham Borough. Passenger numbers will increase from 80 million to about 135 million with a third runway. Heathrow is already the biggest single source of greenhouse gases in the UK. Between 1990 and 2017, greenhouse gas emissions for the aviation sector have not improved. Adding another runway with more flights will only make matters worse. In the absence of real logical data related to greenhouse gas emissions, as Heathrow Airport have hidden behind carbon offsets, the likely increase in CO2 emissions from flights alone is likely to be around 40% with the third runway. The Civil Aviation Report on the UK's 5 largest airports between 2006 and 2016, the number of flights made for businesses at these airports has not increased. According to the Campaign for Better Transport, just 15% of the UK population take about 70% of all flights. The DfT report, Airport Capacity in the South East, indicates regional airports will lose out from a Heathrow expansion, since with a third runway, they'll have 17 million fewer passengers by 2050 than they would without it. Wokingham Borough Council, along with other local authorities and the UK Government, have agreed to a climate emergency. There are only 10 years to take drastic action, and if Wokingham Borough Council are really serious about climate change, then they must object to the expansion of Heathrow. As indicated in the DBEIS, all sectors of the economy, especially the transport sector, must make deep cuts to emissions, and that includes aviation. Expanding Heathrow will only increase greenhouse gas emissions from more flights and road transport, as there's no provision for the Western Rail Link and the Southern Rail Access, which we've been waiting for decades. However, there are plans to construct the Southern and Northern Parkway car parks that has been quoted as the world's largest car park with 50,000 spaces. Traffic for these car parks will use existing congested highway network, therefore more air pollution. An expanded Heathrow with additional 123,000 jobs, currently there's 110,000, will also put pressure on more housing development along the M4 commuter corridor. In areas such as Wokingham Borough, where a recent housing consultation has given a 95% no vote to more housing. Additional housing will also put pressure on the local and strategic highway network, as there's no programme for the addition of the Western and Southern rail links. In summary, increased air pollution from additional flights, increased air pollution from additional road transport, lack of any guaranteed delivery programme for the Western Rail Link and Southern Rail Access.
Councillor
I'd
Holson.
like to make sure that we propose an amendment before it gets to 10:30.
Okay.
And the amendment is with...
It's got to be issued.
Can't do it until he's finished speaking.
Okay, so
Deputy Mayor, I was almost finished. It would have been quite nice if the leader had actually stood up at the end of my speech.
I think he was concerned about the time, understandably.
So I hope you do add on this additional time. Thank you.
It's a red light. Please finish quickly.
I thought it was quite rude. I was still on amber light, and I only had a few lines to go, and he stood up in the middle of it.
Please continue.
Thank you. So, lack of any guaranteed delivery programme for the Western Rail Link and Southern Rail Access, increased noise from up to 260,000 more flights per annum, increased pressure on the housing in the M4 corridor, and expanded airport goes directly against tackling climate change. Supporting the climate change emergency and Heathrow Airport expansion, you cannot have both. This council must not support the expansion of Heathrow Airport. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Halsall.
Sorry. Point of order, please, Mr. Mayor. Deputy Mayor.
Oh, he's doing this again, is he? What is the point of order?
Okay. I would like to propose, it's not a point of order, it's actually a motion that doesn't require notice, and that's a motion to adjourn the debate under Rule 4.2.13.12. That motion, for those members who aren't familiar with the Constitution, means that the debate will carry on at the next meeting so that everyone can have a say on this important issue.
Which one? They've only had a proposal and a second, they haven't had anybody else speaking, have they?
Does he need a second?
I don't think we've had enough information to debate enough, have we?
Right, okay, so it's not...
So it's not enough information yet.
Point of order. John was first.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the point of order is not valid?
No, it's not a point of order.
Okay, well, that's what he's saying it is.
Yeah, so we do that. So, Anne, is it which can we first?
Well, we've got about 3 minutes. This is the same as happened before. We did in the last 2 minutes of the previous meeting, didn't we?
Right,
This is what he did before, we did the last 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay.
It's not a point of order, apparently.
So we're going to do that first.
Which one are we going to do? It's what?
Yeah. It's just
So what are we going
whether
for?
John goes first or Councillor Croy.
We actually stood up first.
John did.
No.
I thought John.
John stood up first.
We're out of time now anyway. Mr Deputy Mayor, sir.
Yes.
We're happy to support the amendment in the interests of everybody going home. As long as and my amendment can stay to the next meeting.
So we'll vote on the closure.
We're going to vote on...
No, you'll have a vote on the closure. Yeah.
We ask everybody to vote on
in
closure.
In accordance with the Constitution, they've got to have a vote. Right.
Okay. It will appear in accordance to the rules, it will appear we have to have a vote
on the closure.
On the closure motion.
It's not closed.
To take the closure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
To accept closure.
Yes. A closure motion.
A closure motion. Do we accept that we're going to close it?
We want to vote on the closure motion and it goes to the next meeting.
Yes. Can we... Those in favour of the closure motion, and then if that happens, it goes to the next meeting. So all those in favour? Oh, it's unanimous, isn't it? Yes, we approve the closure motion.
Right.
Thank you.
Meeting is closed.
Sorry?
Meeting is closed.
Right, the meeting closes at 10:30. Thank you.